my boyfriend cancels our anniversary trip to go on a work retreat with his suspiciously flirtatious colleague. He doesn't realize I booked the villa next door and plan to accidentally bump into them poolside. However, when I see the truth, it's so much worse than what I was thinking. Hi, I'm Kaylee, 26 female, and I want to tell you about my relationship with Zach, 26 male. It all started way back in high school. Imagine, almost 10 years ago. We were both in the drama club, and I was super nervous before a show. Zach, with his cute smile, came over and started talking to me. Who knew that this would be the start of something so special? We started dating like most high school kids, going to the movies, taking walks, and staying up late on the phone talking. We could tell each other anything, and we helped each other through those sometimes tricky teenage years. Even though we had a few arguments, just like any young couple, we always made up, and that made us stronger. Leaving high school was a big change for us. We went to different colleges, and all of a sudden, we were in a long-distance relationship. It was tough sometimes, but we made the time to visit each other, texted all the time, and had long talks on video chat late into the night. Being apart actually made us realize how much we wanted to be together. When college ended, we both started our careers. We helped each other with job interviews, celebrated every promotion, and were there to cheer each other up when work got stressful. We'd gone from being high school sweethearts to real-life partners. We learned to rely on each other and celebrate all the wins, big and small. A big moment for us was deciding to move in together. It felt serious, but we knew we were ready. Living together made us even closer, and we learned a lot. We had to compromise, talk things out, and be patient with each other. We figured out how to split chores, manage our money together, and even argue without hurting each other's feelings too much. Over the years, Zach and I kept growing, both as individuals and as a couple. We love to travel and make amazing memories exploring the world together. Of course, life threw curveballs, health stuff, family worries, just the normal stress of being an adult. But through everything, we were there for each other. No matter what happened, I knew Zach always had my back, and I had his. Zach got a great new job with better pay, and it changed things between us. His company was all about socializing and building teams, which meant lots of work parties and trips. At first, I was totally on board. It was great to see him excited about his career. But as time went on, I noticed our dynamic shifting, especially how he interacted with his coworkers. One coworker in particular, Jennifer, 25 female. Jennifer was outgoing and super flirty, and I caught on to that right away at a work party. She seemed playful, but it felt like all the flirting was directed at Zach, even in front of me. She would laugh too hard at his jokes, casually touch his arm, and call herself his quote-unquote work wife. And she'd keep throwing in these little comments about how she got that title while I, even after a decade together, still didn't have a ring. At first, I tried to tell myself Jennifer was just being friendly, and I trusted Zach when he said that he was just messing around. But her behavior just got more and more obvious, and it was impossible to ignore how uncomfortable it made me. How could someone be so bold, flirting with a coworker so openly when they knew he was taken? Every work event seemed to bring a new instance of Jennifer flirting with Zach. At a team dinner, she sat way too close to him and whispered something that made him laugh, all while glancing over at me, like she was checking to see if I was bothered. Later, at a company outing, she made sure to sit right next to him during a silly team building team, poking him and joking in a way that definitely felt more flirty than friendly. It started to drive me crazy. Each time it happened, I felt a mix of anger and insecurity. I wanted to confront her, but I didn't want to cause a scene or seem controlling. But more than anything, I was starting to worry about what this could mean for me and Zach. Even though I felt uncomfortable, I did my best to trust Zach. We talked about how Jennifer made me feel, and he kept saying she was just being friendly and I shouldn't worry. But in my gut, I just had this uneasy feeling that wouldn't go away, especially anytime Jennifer was around. The more Zach got involved with his new job and all the socializing that went with it, the more insecure I felt. Was I crazy for being bothered by Jennifer? Or was something happening between them that Zach wasn't admitting? I couldn't stop those thoughts, and it was starting to hurt our relationship. A relationship that used to be so solid. Zach swore Jennifer was just super outgoing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just about one big thing. It was all these little moments adding up. The way she'd touch him, the inside jokes, it all built up until I couldn't stop myself from feeling suspicious and worried. One weekend, Zach's company had a work conference out of town. He invited me to come, thinking it would be a nice mini vacation for us where we could spend some quality time together. But things turned awkward fast when Jennifer showed up. I didn't even know she was going. The whole weekend, I couldn't help but feel uneasy watching Zach and Jennifer. They were always hanging out, telling inside jokes, and giving each other these looks that made me feel like a third wheel in my own relationship. I tried to be a part of their conversations, but it always felt like they shared something I wasn't in on, some kind of connection that was more than just being coworkers. The more I saw them together, the worse I felt. I knew I shouldn't be jealous, but I couldn't shake the worry that something more was happening, or that maybe it could happen if I wasn't careful. It was ruining what was supposed to be a fun trip with a person I loved. One night, Zach had a late work thing. He promised he'd be home early, but the hours went by and I really started to get really worried. When he finally walked in, he seemed flustered and wouldn't really tell me where he'd been. Later, a friend of ours let slip that she'd seen Zach and Jennifer leaving the party together, talking like they were totally absorbed in each other. Stuff like that kept happening, and it made me feel like I was just watching my own relationship from the sidelines. It didn't seem to matter how many times Zach insisted nothing was going on with Jennifer. I couldn't get rid of this feeling that there was more to their connection that he was letting on. The more incidents there were, the worse I felt. Every inside joke, every long work dinner, it all piled up and made me doubt our relationship. Was Jennifer just a fun coworker, or was she becoming something more? Our 10th year anniversary was coming up, and I was so excited to plan something special. 10 years is a huge milestone. I wanted to celebrate how far Zach and I had come together. I spent weeks picking the perfect place to go, finding the most romantic hotel, and planning special activities like dinners and outings just for us. I put so much thought into every detail. I imagined how happy Zach would be when he saw what I had planned. This trip was supposed to be about us, a chance to relax, get away from everyday stress, and remember all the amazing times we've had together. I couldn't wait to see his face when I told him. Just a few days before our big anniversary trip, Zach told me he wouldn't be able to go. He had to attend a mandatory work retreat the whole weekend. At first, I couldn't believe it. I was frustrated and confused. How could work come before our anniversary, especially after I'd spent so long planning this special getaway for us? We sat down to talk, and Zach explained how important this work trip was for his career. He talked about the opportunities, meeting important people, and how it could help his future. I get that his job is important, but I couldn't help but feel really disappointed and even a bit sad. Our anniversary was supposed to be about us, and now our plans were ruined. It wasn't that I wanted him to ignore his career, but 10 years felt like something we should celebrate, and I'd worked so hard to make it perfect. Now, it felt like all that work didn't even matter. Even though I knew it was the right thing, I agreed to cancel the trip. It hurt to let go of the plans that I'd made, but I also understand that supporting Zach's career is important for our relationship. Still, a part of me couldn't shake the disappointment of our special day being ruined by work stuff. As soon as I hit cancel on our reservations, I felt so sad. All that planning and excitement, and now it was just gone. I felt empty and let down. A little part of me even felt resentful towards Zach and his job. I couldn't stop wondering if our relationship would always come second to his career. I tried not to let it show how upset I was, but that feeling of disappointment lingered. I knew I needed to be supportive, yet still, I couldn't help feeling a little sad about missing out on the special trip I'd worked so hard on. Even after canceling the trip, I still felt uneasy. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. So, I did something I knew I shouldn't. I looked through Zach's phone. Finding out the truth about his work retreat was awful. It was like all my worst fears were true. My hands were shaking as I read through his messages and emails, figuring out where he really was. The truth hit me hard. Zach wasn't at some work thing at all. He was meeting up with Jennifer at a fancy resort. I was shocked. I couldn't believe he would lie to me like that, especially about our anniversary. A wave of emotions washed over me. I was angry, hurt, and totally confused. How could he do this? At that moment, I made a crazy decision. I booked a villa at the same resort, right next door to where Zach and Jennifer were staying. My flight left the day before our anniversary. It felt a little reckless, but I was desperate to know what was really going on. I needed to see the truth for myself. As soon as Zach stepped out of his car at the resort, my heart sank. There was no hiding it now. He and Jennifer were together, just like I'd feared. There was no work conference, no innocent excuse. He'd lied to me, and the worst part, Jennifer was pregnant. Everything hit me at once. The shock felt like a punch to the gut, making me feel sick and dizzy. The betrayal was crushing. To see her pregnant with his child felt like proof that he'd built a whole separate life with her, one that I wasn't allowed to be a part of. All the hurt and anger I'd been trying to hold back exploded out of me. I couldn't face them. I couldn't even stand to look at them a second longer. I ran back to my room and slammed the door. Once inside, I finally collapsed. The tears came pouring out of me, hot and uncontrollable. It felt like my whole world was crashing down. Hours went by while I just sat there crying and feeling totally lost. The trust I'd had in Zach was shattered. All the plans we'd made for the future gone. Every memory we shared now felt poisoned, tainted by his lies. How could someone I'd loved for so long do this to me? It was unbearable. As the sun began to set, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to see them, to confront them. My heart was heavy and my hands shook, but I walked over to their villa, ready to expose the truth about their lies. But when I got there, the place was empty. I wasn't about to give up. I started searching the resort, my heart pounding. Every step felt like it took forever. I was nervous and scared, but mostly just so angry. Finally, it was like I was being led by some force to their hiding spot. There they were, in a private little cabana on the beach. The sight broke my heart. They were having a romantic dinner, lit by candles, acting like there was no one else in the world. Watching them, seeing how close they were, was almost worse than finding out about the affair in the first place. Every laugh they shared, every touch, it felt like a slap in the face. All the years I'd given Zach, all the love, and he'd thrown it away for this? Then I saw it, the worst possible sight. Zach was down on one knee, holding out a ring to Jennifer. It was the ultimate betrayal. 10 years together meant nothing to him. It was like all our memories, all the good times we'd shared, were just a joke. The pain and anger that had been building up all this time exploded out of me. I wanted to scream at them, to make a scene, to let them know how much they hurt me. But as much as I wanted to, I knew there was no point in causing a big scene in front of everyone. It wouldn't make me feel better, and deep down, I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. So with tears blurring my vision, I turned around and ran back to my room. My heart felt shattered. Once I was alone, I couldn't stop crying. How could Zach do this to me? The man I loved and trusted for a decade had betrayed me in the worst possible way. His lies felt like a physical wound, and I didn't know how I would ever get over this. I was heartbroken. I had to get away from that resort, away from the lies and the pain. Shaking, I booked the earliest flight home. I couldn't be in that place for another minute. On the plane, I couldn't stop crying. I felt numb, like this couldn't be real. How could our relationship, everything we had, end like this? It made me doubt everything, even the good times. My future, which had always had Zach in it, was now just a big question mark. Walking back into my own place felt strange. It was home, but it didn't feel like it anymore. Everything reminded me of Zach and the happy life I thought we had. Now, those memories only made me sad and confused. I was overwhelmed and exhausted, and I knew I had to make some big decisions now about my life. But at that moment, all I could do was collapse on my bed and cry myself to sleep. I wasn't going to confront Zach. The truth was right there. He was with Jennifer, and she was having his baby. Arguing wouldn't change anything. It was clear that the love we'd once shared was gone, and holding on was just hurting me more. That night, back in my empty home, I decided it was time to go. I couldn't stay in a place with so many reminders of a relationship that was now destroyed. But before I left, I did one small thing. I printed out the photo I had taken of Zach proposing to Jennifer and tapped it to the fridge where he couldn't miss it. It wasn't much, but it made me feel a tiny bit better to know he'd have to face what he'd done. Then I blocked Zach everywhere. Phone, email, everything. It was a way to take back some power, to stop him from being able to waltz back into my life like nothing happened. I was not going to let his memory haunt me. I was determined to block him out and start building a new life for myself, a life without him. I went straight to my brother's place. He was the only person Zach didn't know about, so it felt safe there. I was able to just fall apart and cry without worrying about running into Zach. Thankfully, I can work from anywhere, so I didn't even have to go back to my old place. I stayed hidden away, working remotely and trying to start putting myself back together. After a few days, I finally told my friends and family what happened with Zach. It felt good to finally let it out, and just having them there for me made a huge difference. They completely blocked Zach out of my life, and they wouldn't even let me see what he was doing on social media. It was what I needed, to break away from him completely and start focusing on myself. It was a rough time. I felt so many things: hurt, angry, betrayed, and mostly just incredibly sad. But the support of my loved ones got me through the worst of it. Their love reminded me that I wasn't alone and gave me hope that I'd be okay again someday. Even though I'd blocked him, Zach wouldn't leave me alone. He kept trying to contact me, emails, texts, even trying to find me on social media. It was awful. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart sank. Afraid of what he might say, I just wanted to forget him, but he wouldn't let me. He even went so far as to call my mom, begging her to tell him what went wrong. I was so angry. How dare he drag my family into this after everything he'd done? He had no right to invade their lives, to ask them about me. It felt like a huge violation. Thankfully, my family stuck by me. Just like I'd asked, they didn't tell him anything. Knowing they were on my side helped me stay strong, helped me resist the urge to text him back, or worse, let him back into my life. It was the support I needed to finally start breaking free from him for good. It had been weeks since I left, but I couldn't stop wondering, was cutting Zach off completely the right thing to do? Maybe I needed to face him and tell him how much he'd hurt me. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to ask how could he do this after everything we'd been through. My friends and family agreed. They thought that I should confront Zach and make him listen to how his betrayal affected me. They said it would be good for me, that I would feel better after finally getting it off my chest. It was tempting. I desperately wanted answers. Why did he throw away 10 years together? How could he just move on to someone else so quickly? Did he ever really love me at all? Part of me wanted to see him squirm, to let him know he couldn't just get away with hurting me like that. But the other part of me was terrified. What if confronting him made everything worse? What if he didn't care about my feelings, or even try to blame me for what happened? I was scared that talking to him would just tear open old wounds and leave me feeling even more broken. Do you guys also think that? I would love to hear your thoughts. The last month has been a total roller coaster. I've been angry, sad, numb, and sometimes I even miss Zach a little. Crazy, right? Just when I was starting to accept what he did and focus on taking care of myself, he had to throw a wrench in my plans. Somehow, the guy figured out I was staying with my brother. I wish I knew how he did it, but that's besides the point. One day, I opened the door and there he was, looking desperate and asking to talk. My heart sank. I didn't want to see him, but part of me was curious about what he'd say. Thankfully, my brother wouldn't let Zach in until I was ready to see him. He told Zach to leave, but Zach refused. It made me so grateful to have my brother protecting me, but also a little scared. How far would Zach go to talk to me? He was determined. He told my brother he'd come back every day until I agreed to see him. The thought of him showing up unannounced, day after day, made me incredibly anxious. I just wanted to hide and forget about everything, but now it felt like his betrayal was following me, inescapable. Part of me wanted to be strong and ignore Zach. I didn't want him to think that his begging and pleading was working. It would feel so good to show him that I didn't care anymore, but the thought of him showing up every day, disrupting my brother's home, and the small bit of peace I'd found there was too much. I also couldn't help but wonder why he was doing this. Did he really regret everything and want to apologize? Or was he just trying to make himself feel better? I couldn't read his mind, which made the situation even more stressful. All of these questions swirled through my head, making it impossible to relax or start to heal. Each day that Zach showed up at my brother's made things worse. It reminded me of everything I'd lost, the relationship, the future we'd planned. I felt anxious and powerless, wondering how long this would go on. Would he keep coming back forever? Or would he eventually give up and go back to his new life? Not knowing made me feel out of control, like my life was in the hands of someone I couldn't trust anymore. Part of me wondered if I should just talk to him and let him have his say. But deep down, I knew nothing he could say would undo the hurt he'd caused me. Could any explanation make it okay that he lied and cheated? Could any apology make me trust him again? I doubted it. Betrayal like that leaves a wound that may never fully heal. Even though part of me wanted to understand how this happened, another part knew that there was no going back. Nothing he could say would fix what was broken. What do you guys think I should do? After a month of Zach showing up every single day, I finally agreed to talk to him. We sat down with my brother right there beside me, watching Zach like a hawk. I was a mix of emotions, angry and sad, but mostly, I just wanted this to be over. I wanted to understand why he'd done this to me after all we'd been through. Zach begged me to look at him, but I just couldn't. I knew I would see guilt in his eyes, maybe regret, but also the lies. Instead, I stared at a spot on the wall, refusing to let him see how badly he'd hurt me. He started talking, but I barely heard him. He tried to explain, to say it was a mistake, that he never meant to hurt me. But I didn't believe a word of it. It wasn't a mistake, it was a choice he made. How could he expect me to forgive something like this? His excuses felt empty, and with every word, my anger flared up even hotter. As Zach finally admitted the truth about Jennifer, I felt sick to my stomach. He said it was nothing serious, just a physical thing that quickly got out of hand. But then he told me she was pregnant, and my heart sank. That wasn't a mistake. That was a huge life-changing decision that he'd made while he was still with me. His excuses made me even angrier. How could he think I would believe that he planned on telling me the truth someday? That he proposed to Jennifer just because he felt guilty? It made me feel like I was nothing to him, like our entire relationship was a lie. Every word made me realize how deep his betrayal went, and it was almost too much to bear. Zach kept begging for me to say something, but I couldn't even look at him. I stared at the far wall, trying to block out his voice. I didn't want him to see how much he destroyed me. He swore he still loved me, that he would do anything to make it up to me, but I didn't believe him. He'd already proven that his words were meaningless. He'd broken every promise we'd ever made. The hurt was too much, too fresh. Nothing he could say now would change anything. Finally, he asked me to say something, to give him an answer so he could have some closure. As if he was the one who deserved closure. It made me so angry. How dare he ask that from me, after everything he'd done? He'd wrecked my life, but expected me to comfort him about it. The nerve of him made me speechless. I realized there was nothing else to discuss. Zach had said his piece, and I didn't feel any better. He hadn't even tried to make real amends, just excuses. He wanted me to forgive him, to understand, to say something to make him feel better. But I owed him nothing. Finally, I stood up without a word, unable to look at him any longer. That's when my brother stepped in. He gently took Zach by the arm and firmly told him that it was time to go. Zach tried to argue, but my brother didn't back down. He made it very clear that Zach was no longer welcome there. As Zach finally walked out the door, I felt a huge sense of relief. He'd hurt me badly, and it would take time to get over it, but kicking him out was the first step towards getting my life back. A weight lifted as the door slammed shut, and I finally started to feel a bit stronger. The future still felt scary, full of unknowns, but I was determined to not let this break me. I was better than that. I refused to let Zach define who I am. Slowly, with time, I would heal and rebuild my life. I know the road to recovery won't be easy, but I have hope. I have the support of my brother and friends, and that would make all the difference. It will take a long time, but I know in my heart that I will come out of this even stronger than before. Hey guys, it's been a while. I just wanted to check in and let you know how I'm doing. Zach hasn't tried to talk to me face to face since I kicked him out, but he keeps sending emails about how much he misses me. I'm ignoring them, of course. Honestly, this whole thing has messed me up. It's hard to accept that everything we had together was a lie. Some days, it's all I can do to keep it together. The pain and the betrayal feel overwhelming. I know I'm strong, and I'm trying to rebuild my life. I'm taking things one day at a time and focusing on myself. Therapy is helping, and it's been amazing to have my friends and family there for me, even when I've been hard to be around. I am so grateful for them, as they've been amazing. They've listened to me cry, yelled with me, and just been there when I needed them. Knowing that I have them has helped me so much. It's slow going, but I feel like I'm getting a tiny bit stronger each day. I've also heard some news that wasn't exactly fun. A friend told me that Jennifer had the baby and that Zach's with her playing dad. It hurts knowing he's moved on so fast, but it also makes me see that our relationship really is over. There's no going back. I try not to think about what's happening with them anymore. Honestly, I don't really care. There might be a small, petty part of me that's still curious if it will last, but mostly I'm just focused on my own life. I won't let what they did ruin my happiness, and I deserve to be with someone who truly loves me. From now on, I'm focusing on the future, not the past. I'm done letting this experience define me. It's time to find out who I am outside of that relationship and to really go after the things I want in life. I'm going to let this be my last update about Zach and everything that happened. There's no point in dwelling on it anymore. Instead, I want to thank all of you for being there for me. Your support, kind words, and listening ears have meant the world. Knowing you guys were there helped me get through the worst of it. I still have some rough days, but I'm healing, and I'm excited to start this new chapter, to build a life that makes me truly happy. And that was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.